Hey everybody, welcome to the Back to Brilliance podcast. We're your hosts, Henry and Joseph. Thanks for tuning in. We ask that you subscribe, leave a comment or review. Helps great people like you find our podcast. And with that, we're going to talk about today balancing the mental and physical planes of business. In this episode, we're going to talk about wealth creation begins in the invisible but finishes in the physical. So we're going to break that down, what that means as we go through the podcast. But right now I want to bring on our co-host, Joseph. Joseph, say what's up and take it away.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? So today I wanted to kind of talk about something that I've talked about to others previously, but also I found a very interesting video. And it's kind of, what spawned this whole episode. But like Henry said, right, you want to balance your physical, right, or the the internal and the external. Because if you focus too much on the external, like your job or building up skills, and you don't focus on the mental side, your mindset and all of that, you can find yourself in a trap. And so there are two well-known authors that kind of have quote-unquote opposing views, but they're two sides of the same coin. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this episode is, there's two sides to this coin, the mental and the physical.
Absolutely. And, that's the thing, guys. What we're talking about, our first point that we want to discuss is, why just grinding or just manifesting, kills business growth. You can't have one without the other. And like Joseph's talking about, two sides of the same coin. We're talking about, Napoleon Hill and Wallace D. Wattles. So there's two different, angles of approach or attack, the way their information is taught to us and the way we read it in their books. So we want to discuss that a little bit and break that down, and just to help you to get some clarity and, and just seeing that, again, just grinding or just manifesting isn't enough.
Exactly, because you have to balance yourself, right? You have to balance the internal and the external. And so I want to start off with like the Napoleon Hill trap, if you want to say it like that, because if you only solely focus on your physical or like your specialized knowledge, you'll get lost in it, right? So if you're like, oh, I need to constantly improve my skill set, I need to constantly earn more money, right? You'll kind of find yourself in a place where it's like, okay, I need to level up my mindset because, maybe you have earned enough money and you're just telling yourself like, hey, I need to earn more money, or hey, maybe you're too afraid to actually like step back and appreciate what you have. And so, taking action it's not just like about taking action. It's not just about doing it, but it's also having faith and a vision to what you're doing. Because if you only go, and you don't step back and allow yourself to breathe, throughout the process, you'll have burnout.
Absolutely. And that leads us into the Wallace-Wattles trap. What we're talking about, it's not just so much about the systems or the mechanics, because when you have those systems and mechanics, a lot of times we sit down and we plan and strategize and say, well, I'm going to do this, and this, and we put that structure in place, but we don't take the next step, which is faith, and it's like faith without works is dead. So if you don't put any action behind it, you can plan for 10 years and never start, you know what I mean? So this is kind of where it goes hand in hand, stepping out, and doing the things, we can visualize all day long, but when you don't act on it, it just leads to missed opportunities. So, in life, there's that balance, of the mental and the physical planes. So yeah, you can have great ideas and all these things. The cemetery is full of people with great ideas that never accomplish things, and it's a true saying, so we're here today, so it's not just a grinding thing or just a manifesting thing, but it's putting, these things into action. So don't be afraid to take the steps. A lot of times I think we don't take them because we feel we're going to fail, but failure is part of the process. So when you embrace that failure as part of the process, then you can see, okay, this didn't work. It wasn't a fail. It's just this didn't work. So and that's kind of where faith takes you out there, and you can see on the, Waddles, the way he taught was like a faith-based type thing. Like, just believe that it's going to happen. So when you plan the Napoleon Hill strategies, techniques, and structure, then just trust the process and know that things will happen.
Exactly, right. And so kind of an example that's given is like, the Napoleon Hill side or aspect of things is like, that is going to create your drive, or I'm sorry, that's going to run your ship, right? But the Waddles side is going to create your passion, your drive, right? So, the Napoleon Hill side is very much like the systemized, right? Really defining the how and the why. I'm sorry, the what and the why is the Waddle side, and then the Napoleon Hill side is going to be your how. But basically, like Henry just said, right? If you only have, if you're only like, oh, I'm going to manifest this, I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I'm going to manifest $1 million, but like they don't have any systems in place for them to manifest that $1 million. How is it going to happen? Or people will say, oh, I'm manifesting the ideal partner, whether it's, husband, wife, whatever the case may be. But if you're not, putting yourself out there in the dating market or, improving yourself, how are you going to attract the people that you want? And so that's kind of the Waddles trap is, if you only manifest or if you're only mental, there's no physical to it, right? And so, if you want to look at it like this, like there's a conflict between both. If you go one side, if you focus too much on the Napoleon Hill side, right, you'll kind of just be constantly focusing on like, I need to improve my external. But if you focus too much on the Waddle side, you're always going to be living life, and you're always going to be living your life through an illusion, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's all in your head if you're just quote unquote manifesting and not doing anything else.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, we're talking about balance here, guys, So the thing is when you take these approach and you understand that, the balance of both sides, this is going to help you in your journey, and a lot of times, we get stuck, so, or too much of one thing is not enough, so failing to take action, in the right circumstance, it can, like bring frustrations, and stuff like that. So, inefficient action usually happens in our lives because we're not prepared, we're not ready. So that takes us back to the Napoleon Hill, putting the systems and the mechanics in place, to be ready. And the other side, when you take the step of faith and you get out there and you do it, it creates the opportunities, it provides those things, it's a universal law, really, of like reaping and sowing, so if you don't plant seeds, you can't expect to reap a harvest. That's just a fact of life. That's balance. That's why farmers are out there in the seasons, and they're reaping in the other seasons and stuff like that. So in life, in business, you have to have that balance. So it's not all just grinding or just manifesting. It's combining them together and putting it into action.
Exactly. And I want to pivot to like, how to synthesize all of this, right? We're saying we're trying to, or we're kind of diagnosing what to look out for, but now, we want to address how you can integrate it, right? How to actually balance yourself with both, because, the visionary side of things, right? The Waddles side, start your day and end your day with gratitude, right? We've talked about this before, having a gratitude journal. I know Henry does it. That's something that I'm going to definitely implement this year. Having a gratitude journal. I mean, at the end of every night, I kind of, say thank you for having another day, being able to to achieve my goals for another day and all that jazz. And so, start your day and also end your day with gratitude, and also visualize, right? What are you trying to achieve today? And it could be something small like, oh, okay, today I'm going to go check my mail, right? Or like today I'm going to do this, or, like really visualize what you're going to do that day. That way you prime your mind for what you're trying to do, right? And remind yourself of your goals, and so that way you're able to really, like I said, prime your subconscious mind away from limitation, right? If you wake up and you're like, oh, today I have to go to work again today, right? Well, that's putting a limit to yourself, because it's like, okay, well, I get to work again today. I get to make money for my family and all those things.
Absolutely. And that takes us to our next point, the integrator. Immediately shifting into integrator mode is a Napoleon Hill thing. The moment like inspired ideas or opportunities appear, you need to, channel them down. You need to write them down. You need to speak on it. You need to, start to like put some time into it. A lot of times we get great ideas and then we think, oh, all the hard work that has to go into making it happen, I don't know if it will. And we start to doubt, but a lot of times the most simplest things that you think are too simple are very profound, and they can really change the trajectory of your business, your life, and the lives of others around you. So it's important to use these detailed plans, specialize, in that knowledge, and it came to you for a reason, right? So like start to mastermind, get around other people, join communities, shameless plug here. We have our community, join in, you know what I mean? And get around like-minded people so you can begin to integrate the actions and get more feedback and more input. And, the momentum will begin to build in your life and take place in your business, and you'll see the results.
Exactly, right. And so that's a big thing, is like a mastermind, like we said, with our community, which we'll mention at the end of the podcast again. But, just pretty much being able to come up with your plan and know what you're going for, right? And so that is the biggest thing with Napoleon Hills. Know where you're going, right? Know how you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. And so the unified approach or whatever would be, you have to have equal mastery in both, like we said, of the invisible realm, right, and the physical realm. And so, the Waddles side of things is really know why you're doing it, what's going to get you, or I'm sorry, not what's going to get you there, but, really see it before it happens. Have faith in it, have belief in it, have conviction about it. And then the Napoleon Hill side is, I'm going to go out and do it now. Like Henry said, sometimes, a lot of times, I've done this too a lot in the past, where I will think of a good idea and then I'll like write it down. But then it's like, okay, well, now I actually have to go out and do it, right? I have to integrate what I just thought about. And it's kind of scary a lot of the times. And so, that's what's stopping me. And so, if you master your mind, then you can master the external as well. And within saying that, constantly check yourself. Like, am I dreaming too much, or am I grinding too much? Because that will really tell you, right? Maybe you've been trying to achieve a goal, and maybe it's to have like a little push, right? An extra push of grinding. That's okay. But are you too much in grind mode? Have you been in grind mode for too long? Or, maybe sometimes we're going through something internally, whether it's doubt, whether it's loss, grief, right? And you just want to like focus on yourself a little bit more. That's okay. But are you focusing too much on the mental side of things? And that's what you have to constantly be checking on yourself.
Absolutely. And that takes us to our next point, is the power of definite decision. It's not until you make up your mind and, put it in your heart that I'm going to do this no matter what, like no turning back, no looking back. I'm just going to go, full force on this. A lot of times we go into things half-heartedly, and then we don't see the fruit or the results right away. So we give up and we're like, it didn't work, So understanding this, this point, and cutting off, like, the possibilities, meaning like it might not work. What if you just reframe your mindset and say, this might actually work, right? So again, just making that definite decision that you're going to do it no matter what, and this is the new year. A lot of times we make new goals, new year resolutions for those of you that do that, but this is the time. So it's almost like a reset. But when you make that decision, which we were encouraging last year at the end of the year, to write it down, set your goals and what you want to accomplish, but understanding this before, applying any strategy or faith or anything like that, like, I'm going to do this no matter what. You'll start to see the momentum, is there going to be some hard decisions that you have to make? Absolutely. But as you begin to put that into your subconscious mind and press that on your thinking, and always having it on the front of your mind, like, all right, things are going bad, but in spite of it, I'm going to keep going, and eventually you'll get to the place where you want to be, so, it's like, you got to tell yourself it's non-negotiable. I'm going to do this no matter what, and that's going to help you, but the most important thing in this is making that definite decision.
Exactly, right? I mean, how can you have full faith and conviction in something if you're like kind of half in, half out, right? If you don't fully devote yourself to something, it's going to be really hard to achieve it, because you're always going to be like, oh, well, I could always fall back on this. No, right? Napoleon Hill talks about it a lot, where he says, he gave the example of Christopher Columbus, where he, destroyed the ships, right? He ordered his crew to destroy the ships whenever they got to the new land, because he knew if there was a way out, they would eventually try to seek that way out. But if they burned the way out, plan B or C, then they only had plan A to go for. And so you have to make it a non-negotiable, where you're like, okay, even if things are going to go bad, even if I'm going to have a slow month, if I'm going to have, a slow period, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to see it through. And, there's something very simple that I heard one time. And it's a guy who, it's a video game guy. He plays video games, and he's gotten pretty good at like every game that he's touched. He's competed for championships in multiple games. And, a lot of people will ask him like, hey, how are you so good at like so many different games? And he's like, well, I just don't stop until I'm good. Right. And that there's a lot of simplicity in that, but, that kind of tells you like, if you just set your mind to it and you don't let up, if you don't give yourself a way out, you're going to achieve it. And again, this is not a guy who's like, oh, I played in like the minor leagues. No, like this guy like plays on big stages constantly in every game that he touches, because again, he does not allow himself to fall back on plan B or C, right? He doesn't stop until he's achieved what he wants. And so, that's a very powerful thing that I still struggle with doing to this day, because I kind of had a point where I didn't have a plan A, and so I would always fall back on plans B or C. And now that I have a plan A, once you decide like, okay, I'm going to be a plumber, okay, I'm going to be a nurse, okay, I'm going to do this, right? That inherently says I'm not going to be anything else, right? Us, Henry and I, we've said, okay, we're going to be an entrepreneur. Well, that now means that we're not going to apply to jobs, right? We're not going to apply to Facebook or something like that, because we have set our own path. And so that's the main thing is, remove plan B or C. And, that's not for everything, right? That's more so for your goal. For finances, you probably want a B or C, some fallback financially or whatever. But as far as your goals, don't make a plan B or C.
Absolutely. And it all comes down, guys, when you make that decision and you go with plan A, and the secret principle, what we're talking about, really, it's like Joseph was saying about the video gamer, what made him so good is repetition, right? Repetition will breed experience, and experience, when it's full grown, will make you an expert. in your area. So like, just stick with it, guys. Sometimes we get, sidetracked or discouraged, and this is why, again, we encourage getting around others, that are like-minded, because it will help you, definitely, and the one secret principle that, both Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles agreed upon was a non-negotiable foundation, right? Like, you can't be wishy-washy. Today you're an entrepreneur, but tomorrow the light bill's due, and it's like, oh man, and we're not saying throw the entrepreneurship out. You got to do what you got to do to bring your income in, but in the process, plan A is to get it to the point where your entrepreneurship is getting you to the place where you want to be, so that way, you have that balance and everything is taken care of.
Exactly, right. And so again, even though, maybe you're working on something, maybe you have a goal to, make X per month, and as an entrepreneur, but maybe your business is not where it needs to be, and so you have to pick up a side job. But you picking up a side job, or applying for like a job at the mall or something like that, right? All of that is still going to lead you to your end goal, because you're like, okay, I just need something to make ends meet for right now. But your right now is not forever, right? And so, even though you may have something, you may have a setback or whatever, if you still have your end goal in mind and you still have your plan A in mind, right? It's okay if you pick up a side job or whatever, to supplement yourself, because, that's just what you need to do in this life. And so, I just want to end on that saying, like, if you have your goal in mind, if you focus on your mental and your physical plane, you'll be very hard to stop.
Absolutely. And yeah, guys, so, with that, just taking that all into consideration, you can't just grind or just manifest. You want to have that balance, so take these steps, that we're sharing with you, and consider them, as maybe you're just starting out, maybe you're halfway in, maybe you've hit some, bumps in the road, and you've gotten a little discouraged, so just keep going, don't stop, action always breeds, reward. So take some action, if you're in a stuck place right now, just know you're not alone and that you can do it. Go back to your vision, look at your vision of why you started this, go back and ask those questions, and then start to integrate, reintegrate the things that, you once, wrote down and said, this is what I'm going to do. And eventually you begin to build that mastery system, and because you've made the definite decision and pulled that trigger, to get started, just know there's no plan B or plan C. You're just going, for the gusto, and you're going to make it happen. So with that, guys, I want to bring Joseph back on if he has any closing thoughts or anything he wants to share with us.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to our community, right? We have a community that combines practical self-growth tools as well as community support and weekly structure to help you stay focused and follow through with whatever you're trying to do. So that's at backtobrilliance.com. If you scroll down to our community tab, you'll be linked up with like-minded people like you.
Well said. Well, guys, with that, we want to thank you for tuning into our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment or review. It helps great people like you find our podcast. And with that, we're out. Until the next time, stay blessed.
Bye-bye.